Australia's central bank just ran 19 real money tokenized trades on a blockchain you've probably never heard of. And the head of the program told the world the digital dollar everyone assumed was the point is, quote, far from essential. March 25th, 2026. Brad Jones, RBA Assistant Governor running Project Acacia, delivers the verdict in Sydney. 20 use cases, 3 of the 4 major banks, JPMorgan, Northern Trust, Chainlink, Fireblocks, wired in. And the network underneath? A permissioned Hedera deployment called HashSphere. A G20 central bank just settled real money on Hedera rails. The mainstream missed this. Project Acacia is a joint thing between the RBA, the DFCRC, ASIC, APRA, and Treasury. Kicked off November 2024. 65 submissions on the consultation paper. The point: could digital money and tokenized infrastructure unstick Australia's wholesale capital markets? Fixed income, repo, trade finance, carbon credits. The plumbing that moves trillions every year that nobody outside finance ever thinks about. The guy running it is Brad Jones, 15 years as a senior advisor at the IMF in Washington. Before that, Deutsche Bank in London and Hong Kong. Cambridge Judge Fellow, Finance PhD from Macquarie. Now, Assistant Governor for the Financial System at the RBA. Here's the part most people skip. The RBA explicitly focused Acacia on wholesale tokenization, not retail CBDC. Brad Jones explained back in September 2024. The public policy case for retail CBDC in Australia is weak. Modest benefits, real risks to financial stability. The interesting question is whether tokenization can fix the back office. They selected 24 use cases in July 2025. By March 2026, only 20 executed. 19 moved real money. 5 were proofs of concept. Real CBDC issued onto external blockchains for the first time in Australian history, settling against tokenized assets in a sandbox where ASIC granted formal exemptions through Instrument 2025/425. This was never theater. Okay, so HashSphere. Hashgraph, Hedera's parent company, launched it March 2025. The named beta customer was Australian Payments Plus, AP Plus, the national payments scheme operator running BPay, NPP, and EFTPOS, the rails most Australians touch every day. AP Plus is also a Hedera Governing Council member, so when the RBA wanted permissioned blockchain rails to test wholesale CBDC on, AP Plus already had the relationship. Technically, HashSphere inherits everything good about Hedera mainnet: asynchronous, Byzantine, fault-tolerant hash graph consensus, 10,000 transactions per second, 3 seconds to finality, EVM equivalent. The difference is validators are KYC gated, no anonymous nodes. Plus, interoperability with public Hedera, so stablecoins like AUDD on mainnet can move into the permissioned environment. Rob Allen, Future Payments at AP Plus, put it cleanly, quote, "We are interested in HashSphere primarily for its enhanced privacy and regulatory compliance, while also needing network interoperability for the seamless interchange of stablecoins," end quote. But here's the wider thing. The RBA didn't just pick Hedera. Acacia issued wholesale CBDC across 5 platforms: HashSphere, Redbelly, R3 Corda, Canvas Connect, and EVM-compatible chains. HGraph built the interoperability layer that lets all 5 talk. Brad Jones called that cross-platform plumbing the novel element of the project. But the retrospect, the only permission deployment of a major public layer 1 in the mix was HashSphere. When the RBA needed an institutional-grade rail, it ended up on HashGraph. 14 lead industry teams: CBA, ANZ, Westpac, AP+, Northern Trust, Fireblocks, Australian Bond Exchange, Imperium Markets, Canvas, Katina Digital, Forte, Not Centralized, Prospects, and ZeroCap. Start with CBA. Commonwealth Bank partnered with JPMorgan, the ASX, and HQLAX to run tokenized repo collateral. JPMorgan brought Kinexys, their tokenization platform. CBA brought their digital assets platform. ASIC brought market expertise. HQLAX brought collateral mobility. Tokenized collateral for repo, settled with central bank money on-chain. That's one of the biggest US banks running their own tokenization stack inside an Australian central bank pilot. Then Westpac. They wired Chainlink Runtime Environment into PayTo, Australia's real-time payment system, and ran delivery versus payment with Ethereum markets. Tokenized assets on a blockchain, cash leg on PayTo, synchronized through Chainlink CRE. Northern Trust took on tokenized carbon credits with Swift in the loop. ANZ ran too. Tokenized trade payables to unlock supplier liquidity, plus tokenized bonds with smart contract issuance using Wholesale CBDC. The smaller players got wild. Catena Digital and Imperium ran stablecoin for DVP. Not Centralized ran the first end-to-end privacy-enhanced securitization on a public blockchain using CBDC. Fireblocks provided wallet infrastructure across third-party blockchains. Asset classes ranged from government bonds and corporate bonds to private credit, term deposits, annuities, mining royalties, and carbon credits. When Brad Jones said this exceeded original scope, that's what he meant. The participants were pushing the edge. Okay, so everything I told you about CBA, JPMorgan, Westpac, Chainlink, carbon credits, all true. Also true, it wasn't atomic settlement on a single ledger. Brad Jones said this explicitly. Quote, locating tokenized assets and money on the same ledgers could yield the largest efficiency gains, end quote. That's not what Acacia did. Acacia ran synchronization bridge DVP, assets and money on different ledgers, coordinated through middleware. For Westpac, Chainlink CRE. For the cross DLT layer, HGraph. It worked. But the same ledger atomic dream is still a dream. Then there's NAB, the fourth of the big four, conspicuously not on the lead participant list. They participated tangentially through Ethereum markets, but the biggest competitor to CBA didn't lead a marquee use case. That tells you something about internal bank politics. Brad Jones also admitted the digital twin model dominated. Industry wanted native digital assets. They got mostly digital twins. Tokens representing an off-chain asset that require reconciliation. He said industry generally viewed digitally native issuance as the preferred end state, but recognized digital twins is more realistic. And then the headline everyone glossed over. On Wholesale CBDC, Brad Jones said, quote, a wholesale CBDC was viewed by industry as potentially helpful, but far from essential, for tokenized markets to get off the ground, end quote. Far from essential. The RBA telling you the central bank digital dollar is conditional, and Governor Michelle Bullock has been blunter. Still not convinced on the retail CBDC side. If you assumed Australia was about to ship a digital dollar, no. When Brad Jones closed the speech, he gave us a list. First, a digital financial market infrastructure sandbox, the DFMI sandbox, for testing tokenized money, assets, and infrastructure together. Second, the RBA is modernizing RITS, the interbank settlement system every Australian bank uses, drawing on the Bank of England's synchronization lab. Third, a regulator industry tokenization advisory group with the RBA, ASIC, APRA, AUSTRAC, and Treasury at the same table. Fourth, an expanded deposit token working group, because Brad Jones thinks deposit tokens will play a bigger role than stablecoins. Fifth, a C-suite roundtable on the future of digital finance. Sixth, and this one is wild, the RBA is reviewing which entities can hold exchange settlement accounts, including stablecoin issuers. Once the payment service provider reforms pass, a licensed stablecoin issuer could hold direct settlement balances at the central bank. Seventh, more engagement with peer central banks on cross-border settlement. Zoom out. April 1st, 2026, Tranche 1B of the Digital Asset Bill passed both houses of Parliament. ASIC's class no action gives the industry until June 30th to apply for financial services licenses. A passed bill, a regulator giving runway, a central bank with a 7-point roadmap, and a Hedera network that proved it carries institutional weight. What did Hedera win? Proof. HashSphere just earned its first major central bank deployment. AP Plus stays on the Hedera Governing Council. AUDD, the AUD-pegged stablecoin, already lives on Hedera mainnet. The next 12 months hinge on whether Hedera gets selected for the DFMI sandbox. The chain crypto Twitter dismisses as enterprise plumbing, just settled real money for a G20 central bank. So here's where I land. The story everyone expected was, is Australia going to issue a CBDC? The story we got is way more interesting. Hedera, through HashSphere, just carried a central bank pilot of real money against tokenized assets. And the central bank itself, called the digital dollar on top, far from essential. Crypto's institutional adoption story has always been about waiting for governments to issue digital currency. Brad Jones flipped the frame. The infrastructure is the win. The currency is conditional. What Australia got is a working tokenized settlement layer with central bank credibility that doesn't need a CBDC to function. If this is the kind of breakdown you want more of, drop a like, hit subscribe, follow me on X at IINMotion. Notion page in the description has every source linked. Drop a comment. Do you think Australia ever actually issues that wholesale CBDC? Or is far from essential code for never?